Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome back to the SEMO Sports Zone presented by A-Corp Sports. My name is Drew. With me, as always, is my coworker Dave. David, how are we doing today?
Doing just fine. It's a nice morning here, and we're getting ready to find out some football playoff rankings and matchups for the first NCAA football playoff. But we got a lot of high school basketball going on.
Yeah, a lot of stories, a lot of drama, and it all kind of Do we want to just address the elephant in the room?
Yeah, let's address that elephant called Gideon right now.
Yeah, kind of the game I was looking forward to most this week didn't end up happening just because of a small skirmish at Gideon at the Bulldog Classic, which is always disappointing. I hate that this is the second year in a row Gideon has had to deal with something happening that's taken a game away from these players. Yeah,
Gideon's got to stop having tournaments. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. They've got to take a hiatus from having tournaments. Something is not right there, and I don't know what it is. I mean, I've heard there's police presence there. I've heard there's not enough police. Something, whatever it is not working because the teams that they have coming in there, it's a problem. And you can't have. If I'm East Prairie, I'm pissed off because 2 years in a row you've had your game canceled or have to be moved because of unruly fans, and you just can't. And it's been at Gideon. That's kind of the common denominator. And honestly, it's nothing against Gideon. It's just that it's happening there. And I don't know if it's the way the layout is of where the concession stand and the lobby is and how everybody's packed in there. I don't know if it's police. I don't know what it is, but if you're Gideon, you've got to take a couple years off from having a tournament because who wants to play there? I would be surprised if East Prairie wants to come back. I would be surprised if Kennett wants to come back. I would be surprised if some of these teams want to come back because it's a problem, and you're not getting your games that you're expected to get. And I would be upset. If you're a fan, you're upset because you want to see these games, but it's not. It's just not it's just 2 years in a row. You can't have it. And you certainly can't have it happen 3 years in a row. And you don't want like a district game or something like that where it's going to have that issue. So I think if you're Gideon, maybe you just take a couple years off from having a tournament. That being said, fans have got to stop being stupid. I mean, that's just that's the main issue here. If you've got an issue with somebody, I mean, you don't. That's not the venue you handle it at, and I don't know what the issues are there, but it's a few schools down south in the Boot Hill, and I don't know what's going on down there, but it's a problem, and it's a problem that could leak into the Bloomfield Christmas tournament because these are teams that are going to be there. And you've got to get this taken care of somehow, some way. Yeah, to me, it's just I think of it. I feel bad for everybody at Gideon that has to put these tournaments on and then have this kind of thing happen because that, it's a tough thing. Like for any school that, especially small schools, that you have to get all the teams to come in. You have to make sure fans are coming in, and it's typically all you're funding itself. Like it's funded by sponsors, things like that. Mm-hmm. This isn't like a Misha provided thing. So, to me, it's very disappointing, mostly for coaches and players too, where it's just like, these are important games where you get to really test yourself and see what you're going to look like in the regular season and postseason. And to have that taken away from you after all that prep and everything like that, that's terrible. So when it comes to like further beyond, when you start seeing events where people just say fans can't come, I mean, you're shooting yourself in the foot if you're bringing this kind of thing like to the venue you're going to. There's no reason to do it. You're there to watch a sporting event. Like that's what you're there for. You're there for the kids, and support your kids however you want to. Don't start fights over it, though. Yeah, and who knows if it even has anything to do with basketball. And that's the thing too. Is it something outside of basketball that's leaking? And you don't know, and you can't control that. And that's a bad thing for Gideon. I mean, they can't control that. They can't control, but at the same time, there are things that you can control. And again, I don't know if it's the setup of the way the lobby is and the way things are there. Maybe the placement of where you have some law enforcement officer, but whatever it is not working because it's 2 years in a row that this has been an issue. And again, I mean, like you said, that was a game everybody was looking forward to. That East Prairie South Pemiscot game, two very good teams. How are they matching up right now? And then you don't get to have it because of something stupid that happens out in the lobby or outside of the basketball arena, and you just can't have that, and it just ruins the whole thing for everybody. And it just shouldn't happen. And I don't understand. I mean, these are things that, crop up every once in a while here or there, but to see it happen 2 years in a row at the same venue is very eye-opening. And it's something that I think, again, nothing against Gideon, but I think it's time to take a little hiatus from hosting some tournaments. And if you're Gideon, I'm almost like, well, I would almost rather not have that headache now, too. I mean, it's just something that, maybe they should and just not have that headache and then kind of rethink how they want to do it.
Yeah, it would be hard to not go into this with kind of a snake-bitten mentality about it. Just like, well, fool me once, but yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about the games we did get to kind of see. Let's start with Thursday's games. So let's talk about South Pemiscot and Kennett, because that is the litmus test we've got to see. Because Kennett's a higher class school. So South Pemiscot taking it to them 70-46. I mean, that's a pretty big score differential. Yeah,
Kennett's still down. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. But South Pemiscot looks good. They defend well. Farmer's a good player. I mean, they have a good team. I mean, it's a good team, and I really wanted to see them against East Prairie, who kind of won the other, beat Hayti pretty handily in the other
80-65.
Yeah, and we were kind of wondering how they would match up against a very athletic Hayti team, and we kind of thought that that's kind of what would happen, but East Prairie can score. Yeah. East Prairie is a team that they like to get up and down the floor, and they've got three guys who can really put the ball in the basket. And that was going to be a really nice game because I thought South Pem's defense could match up pretty well with East Prairie. I think they could slow them down a little bit, so it was going to be interesting to see how that played out. But both of those teams are really good, and nothing that's happened in that tournament on the court tells me anything other than I didn't already know, is that they're both really good basketball teams.
Yeah, just judging kind of what I thought about East Prairie from our last episode, I was a little bit worried about how they did against Gideon with how many points Gideon scored on them. Gideon scored 72 points. But I think against this Hayti team, I don't know what they did with their defense, but they really just jumped it up, because to hold them to 65, I feel like that's really impressive.
Yeah, and East Prairie is a team, they like to get the ball up and down the floor, so they're going to give up points. They're not going to be a team who's going to hold a team to 40 points or whatever typically. They're a team that likes to get up and down the floor. There's going to be a lot of possession, so you're going to have a lot more chances to score against a team like that. But yeah, I thought their defense played really well against some of the athletes that Hayti has. And Hayti, I'm not down on Hayti. I think Hayti's got a good team. I think they're a team that's could cause some teams some problems as the year goes along, and will be there around district time to really cause some teams some problems, because that athletic ability that they have is not going to be matched by many teams around here. So all three of those teams I'm very impressed with, and I think those they're going to play well the rest of the year.
We might get into it a little bit later, but just off the cuff, your top three seeds for PCT right now. What are you thinking?
My top three, I think Puxco's the one. I would put East Prairie 2 and South Pem 3, but that could be South Pem 2, East Prairie 3. I mean, that was kind of going to be my deciding, how they matched up against each other. And I think Dexter 4, honestly. I think Dexter, if Dexter beats Kennett in the SEMO Conference tournament, I think they would be 4. I mean, that win over Charleston looks better now that Charleston beat Notre Dame in overtime on Friday night. So, I think those are your top 4. Well, I mean, I would be surprised if they weren't. I mean, there's other teams that are good, but I think those are your top 4 seeds.
Well, let's talk about another team that kind of really surprised me. I wasn't expecting them to win this game, but Bernie Risco, 75-70.
Yeah, I said on the last show, I thought, Bernie is a tough team to play against because Coach Long does such a good job, and he is going to have his team ready to play against whoever they're going up against. And and they can match up very well against a Risco because, Risco is going to try to get up and down the floor, and Bernie can guard a little bit, and Bernie got hot, shooting the ball. And if Bernie gets hot shooting the ball, there's not a lot of teams that are going to beat them. They ran into a very good Campbell team on Friday night, and Campbell's good playing in their home gym, but that was a really good game. I mean, it kind of went down late. They kind of pulled away late, but Bernie's a good team. They've got some young talent, and Coach Long does a great job with them. And you're not, you're not going to find a better coach in the area.
I feel like it was a statement game because I feel like Bernie was kind of a sleeper team for a while, but now that you've beaten Risco, which is kind of vaunted as being like one of those upper echelon teams, especially down in that area, now you kind of got some eyes on you. Just been like, oh, don't underestimate Bernie now, because they're still here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you overestimate or underestimate a Bernie team, that's when they're going to get you for sure. Because again, Coach Long is a good coach, and they're just so well, just so well. Their fundamentals, they're so good with their fundamentals, and they pass it well, they guard well, and if they get hot, shooting the ball, I mean, they are a tough team to beat for anybody, and they're young, and so they're just only going to get better. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they plan out, how it ball plays out. The Stoddard County Conference, I think, is loaded this year.
Yeah, I was kind of down on it to start the show like a couple weeks ago, but now that I've seen these teams play, Stoddard County is, man, they're so stacked.
Yeah, it's loaded from 1 to about, I guess, 6 now. I mean, and I mean, you look at a Bloomfield team, it's probably a 7 in that conference, and they're not a bad team. I mean, that's a really, really good deep conference this year, and anybody can win that. And that's going to be a really fun conference tournament in January.
Really quick, let's talk about Campbell and Neelyville. I bring this up because Neelyville plays Puxico, and I kind of want to see how that's going to turn out. Neelyville playing Campbell that close against Campbell, who went on to beat Bernie the next day. I mean, analysis-wise, what do you think about Neelyville?
I think Neelyville is a good team. I don't know much about them, but I've heard that they were supposed to be pretty good this year, and they showed that they were. I mean, they're a team that's going to match up pretty well, and with the same size schools, and now can they match? How will they match up against Puxico? I would think that Puxico would probably match up pretty well against them and have the advantage there. But I don't think Neelyville's a team that's just going to get blown out. I think they've got some really good talent there, and they've shown it so far. So they're kind of over in that Poplar Bluff area that we don't get to see a whole lot of. But they've proven that they're going to be a pretty good team in that Class 2 District 1. I mean, with them and Campbell and Hayti and South Pim, that's a pretty tough district, and a district that's looking like it's getting tougher by the day.
Yeah, I mean, Puxico right now too, like what they've had to deal with. I mean, I can't help but think that like they're probably looking at that Class 2 District 1 and just being like, okay, it's all over there. It's a storm's brewing. Mm-hmm. Don't take it lightly. But the win against Chadwick, I feel like they're really holding is just that standard that they've set for themselves. And against Naylor too, going 88-41, that's impressive. Like just to outscore a team like that is always impressive, but I don't know. Puxico looks really good this year.
Yeah, Puxico looks good to start the season. Again, like we talked about in the last episode,
the start of the season.
You don't want to peak now.
Yep.
You want to make sure you're peaking, and especially with them in Class 2 District 3 when you're in there with Charleston. I mean, that's one you better be peaking come February and late February. So that's but it's good to see how well they're playing right now. I honestly think they're probably the shoe-in for the top seed in that Bloomfield Christmas tournament because they're just playing so well right now.
Yeah, and I mean, they're playing as complete as they did last year, too, which, last year they were the first seed in BCT, and so I don't see why it's any different this year. I mean, the claims that, South Penn beat them last year, that's kind of like the biggest hurdle that they have to get over, but I feel like they're not really – they're taking that in stride. Like, it doesn't seem to really affect them that much.
Yeah, and we'll see when it comes – when it comes seeding time, but at the same time, I think Puxico is. I mean, they're handling teams right now, and they just look really good. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But any of those teams in that Bloomfield Christmas tournament in the top 4 to 8, really, that's going to be a really good tournament this year.
So what about Scott City and New Madrid?
Yeah, Scott City is really good. I had them number 2 in my rankings. They're really good, and they're playing without one of their best players, Jackson Gloth, and he'll be back hopefully in another couple weeks. But Kobe Watson is a heck of a player. 6'6", I think, is about his size. I mean, he can shoot it from outside. He can get to the rim. I mean, they've got size. They've got shooters. I mean, they're a really, really good team. And New Madrid, on the other hand, they're struggling. They're 0-4 right now. But they're young. I mean, they've got Ramon Brooks back, which is going to help them. Jaquan Jones had a pretty good game against Scott City, but they're still struggling a little bit. But Scott City is the real deal.
As far as New Madrid being young, I know that's kind of the focal point that we've kind of hit on. It's just like, we'll look forward to next year, but you want this year to show the improvement. Do you think they're actually improving, or do you think it's just kind of like this? It's
a work in progress. I mean, it's they played some tough teams. I mean, you look at the teams they played. They played two tough teams in the Riverbend, and you go play Scott City, which, again, I had them number 2 in my rankings. They're one of the best teams in Southeast Missouri this year. And then you go over early on a Saturday morning in Kentucky after coming off a road game in Scott City, and you've got to play Graves County, which is a pretty good team over in Kentucky. And, they took it on the chin. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I think it was 77-51, I think was the final, something like that. They're playing some tough teams. So you need a win. I think if you're New Madrid, you need a win. Maybe you can get one in this SEMO Conference tournament somewhere, but you need a win just to give you some confidence and to help Coach Jenkins over there say, hey, look, we're going the right way. We're having some positive things happen. But right now, I mean, they're just kind of taking it on the chin every game. And I think so improvements, I don't know. But I think I look more toward what they're doing in late January, early February, and ask me that question again. We'll see how it is then.
Well, just to pose this question too, I mean, it would be extremely disappointing for the fans of New Madrid, but if you come to the eventuality that this season might be a sub 500 team, is that the most negative thing in the world though?
No, I think the fans understand. The fans understand over there that, look, we've got some good young talent, and we're going to be good in a couple of years. Now, if you're sub 500 next year, you're sub 500 in 2 years.
Then you can start to worry.
That's a big problem. But right now, I think they understand. Look, we lost some really, really good players off last year's team. We have some really, really good players, but they're just freshmen this year. And they're, we're just trying to piece this together, trying to figure it out. I mean, it's a big change going from junior high basketball, the speed of junior high, the strength of junior high, to high school, and against some of the really good high school teams that they're having to play. So I think they're going to be fine. I think, but it's going to take them a while, and there's going to be some growing pains.
Well, let's talk about a team that is kind of exceeding some expectations. Charleston 65, Notre Dame 59.
Yeah, that was a good win. And again, against Dexter, I liked what I saw. I mean, they're very athletic. Charleston is quick. They guard well. They play really hard. They're just young. Another team that's really young. And they playing at home, they play really well at home. And Notre Dame's a team that kind of depends a lot on shooting. I mean, they've got a lot of good shooters, but if you're not hitting on one night, and quickness will speed you up. And Charleston tends to speed Notre Dame up, and they beat them last year in the district championship game. I mean, Charleston plays Notre Dame well, and it's just one of those situations where Notre Dame just didn't hit the shots when they needed to. It goes to overtime, and Charleston pulls away. But that it doesn't surprise me a lot. But again, it makes that Dexter win look a little bit better. Dexter kind of handed it to Malden. Again, Malden's shorthanded, but I mean they just crushed them on Friday night. So, I mean, that, Dexter is probably a little bit better than what people think. And I think Charleston is going to be a little bit better than what people think.
For as far as Dexter goes, I mean, kind of the scuttlebutt I hear is that people they're better than they were last year, which is, I feel like that's an easy adjustment to make. You start to get you take a losing season kind of under your belt, refresh, reload, come back. But a lot of people around Dexter, I don't know. I feel like they're just kind of like, well, I mean, they might be better. Who knows?
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of have tempered expectations because you have so many good teams around you. I mean, you look, again, with Stoddard County Conference. I mean, typically Dexter is 1 or 2 in that conference. Mm-hmm. I mean, they tend to run that, them and Bernie typically. Well, now all of a sudden you've got 6 or 7 teams in there that are really good, and they're tough fights each night. You play in the SEMO Conference, and you're not expected to win many SEMO Conference games. Now, do I think Dexter can beat New Madrid? Yes. Do I think they can beat a Kennett? Yes. I mean, I think they can beat those teams in the SEMO Conference, have a few more SEMO Conference wins, but I think Dexter's going to be fine. Do I think they're a state championship contender? No. Do I think they're going to win a district title? Probably not. But I mean, there's no reason they can't challenge Notre Dame for it. I mean, obviously they've beat Charleston, and Notre Dame lost to Charleston. So if you want to compare scores, which is always a dangerous thing to do, but I mean, yeah, Dexter can compete for a district title. So I think they're going to have a successful year. They looked a lot better again in their first 2 games than they did last year, and we'll just see. So
one of the things that I'm really thinking about for Notre Dame too is, That's a very senior-heavy team.
10 seniors.
So what happens next year when you lose that?
Well, they've got a pretty good junior varsity program. And they just won the junior varsity tournament up in the Notre Dame junior varsity tournament. They beat a pretty good Bartlett, Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. Sykeston's in that. Charleston's in. I mean, a lot of the area teams are in that. Some good teams. And so they've got some talent coming back. Now, will they be as good as they are this year? Probably not. Again, when you lose 10 seniors, you're going to lose a lot. That's a lot of their team. But I think they're going to be okay. I don't think they're going to be a team that's winning 5 or 6 games next year. But I think they'll be okay. But this is their year if they're going to make a run. With those 10 seniors.
Yeah, I would say when I look at that roster and I see that many seniors on your team, it feels like a very hedge your bet season.
Yeah. And they're good, but they depend so much on shooting. And when you depend so much on shooting, you can go cold. And we've all seen it from a lot of different teams. Over the years that you have a team that just once you go cold, and if you can't pick it up, then you've got to find scoring some way somehow that's not behind the arc or whatever. And sometimes you just aren't able to do that.
Kind of talk about another regular season game. Let's talk about Jackson and Crothersville.
Jackson, I think, is very solid, very solid. The Colt Deck kid, he's a good player. And Crowsville's just going to continue to get better. They're very athletic. Dermonte Alexander, who I actually, congratulations to him. I saw that he just signed to play football at, I believe, Culver Stockton. So congratulations to him.
Very cool.
But they're just a lot of good athletes. And I think Crowsville is going to be a good team in Class 3.
Are we already seeing them heat up compared to what we saw in the Riverbend?
Yeah, I think so. At least play a little bit better. They struggled a little bit against Poplar Bluff, but the more games they play, the more basketball shape they're going to get into. And I think Jackson doesn't play a style that's just going to blow a team out typically. So you can kind of hang around a team like Jackson. So I think they're playing a tough schedule. They played Poplar Bluff, they played, Jackson, they played in the Riverbend. So they're playing some tough teams. They're trying to get ready for district, and the coach has said, I'm going to play a tougher schedule this year in order to get ready for districts and make us tougher come district time. And I think that's what they're doing. And you take these losses, but they're not. You played Poplar Bluff close, you played Jackson close. I think they're going to be fine.
Yeah, maybe I should temper my own expectations because I don't know if that says more about the teams they played or them themselves. Because if you're playing these teams that are considered to be pretty good, that close, maybe I'm just not as up on Crothersville as I should be.
Yeah, and they kind of slid under the radar last year. They were not a bad team last year, but they kind of, after all the issues that they had after the Gideon tournament last year, they kind of slid under the radar. They weren't playing a lot of teams from they had to just find games wherever they could, and a lot of those games were not in the area, and so they kind of slid under the radar. But they're a team that was not. They were not a bad team. They were a team that was kind of younger. So they've got some guys this year that are a year older, more experienced, and they're just in football shape. And once they get into basketball shape, and I think they're just going to get better and better. And that's a team that I certainly don't want to play come February.
No. So moving on, I want to talk about the OIT really quick, just because that's what we covered on eCorp Sports. A very fun tournament, honestly. Yeah. I was not expecting it to be as fun as it was. Just like a lot of great games that came out of it, though.
Yeah, and those teams. A lot of those teams know each other. They play each other a lot. In the Scott Miss Conference over there. But some good games, and congratulations to Bell City. I honestly did not see that coming. I thought Richland would kind of run that. Richland is there is some cause for concern there a little bit offensively, but I still think they're going to be fine. They started a little bit slow last year, if I remember right. So I'm not too concerned with that. But Bell City, congratulations to them. They've been down for a while, quite a while. It's been a long haul since the Bell City boom, as we like to call it, when all of a sudden you had a few good basketball players move into Bell City, and all of a sudden you got some good teams. It's been a while since the Bell City boom, and good for them. Because and they play so hard, and they're fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. What I kind of noticed from that game, especially, was I don't know if it's cause for concern for Richland yet, like you said, but at the same time, Bell City just played a complete game. Mm-hmm. And that first half was very touch and go, like for both teams, because it was just, three after three after three matching up. And then once the third started, Bell City just kind of, I don't want to say ran away with it, but they took advantage of Richland's mistakes and, missed threes, things like that. Those are all things that I feel like every team has where it's just like, well, that's a bad shot selection in the moment, just kind of like reverse that, get a layup. But Richland couldn't do that. Like even when they had like bad missed shots, Bell City took advantage of it. Richland gets the ball back. You're thinking, okay, take a layup. Richland couldn't do it. They couldn't get a layup sometimes. And so I feel like, I don't want to say it was death by 1,000 cuts, but it really felt like it, that Bell City just took advantage of every mistake Richland made and came away with a really good win.
Yeah. And Richland, to me, just looked a little disjointed on offense. Just something is not right. Something's just not clicking right there.
Which was surprising because, like, for the past 2 days of that tournament, Richland just rolled.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is to speak to the competition they were playing, too. They weren't, they weren't exactly playing the better teams. And Bell City has proven to be that they're one of the better teams. So, and good for them. Like I said, they Coach Bixler has done a really nice job trying to build that program up, and they just played very sound basketball. And you're going to win a lot of games that way.
Yeah. Overall, this tournament it was a lot of fun just because of how competitive it was. And going into it, looking at the teams, looking at the seeds, I didn't think it was going to be this.
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. I thought Richland would roll through this. I kind of thought Bell City would be there in the finals, but I thought, Richland would, kind of, have their way with them, but I was way wrong. I mean, and Bell City, they just did what they had to do, played good basketball. And again, Richland, I mean, there's some improvement that needs to be made there. But, there's no cause, no hitting the alarm button, no cause for concern there, I don't think yet. Because, again, I think they started a little slower last year, and some teams are just like that. And again, it's not how you play in December, it's how you play in February and March. So, and I think that's what they're looking toward.
Well, these two teams are going to meet each other again soon. I don't really have it on the schedule in front of me, but I think they're going to meet in like the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think they usually play before the Christmas tournament, so they'll play again, and we'll see if Richland improves any, and if not, then maybe Bell City gets them another win, and that's going to really help Bell City. I mean, I think the seeding is we're doing this on Sunday. I think the seeding is today for the Christmas tournament in Cape. So that win's really going to help Bell City for that Cape tournament.
Absolutely. Kind of moving on to more BCT seeding. Kind of teams, Twin Rivers and Bloomfield. Twin Rivers 56, Bloomfield 43.
Yeah, Twin Rivers they're solid. I mean, I don't think they're a team that's going to challenge for the Bloomfield Christmas tournament title, but I mean, they're a solid team. I mean, they're a team that you probably don't want to face. But at the same time, Bloomfield, I mean, I don't know what to think about Bloomfield yet. I mean, I think they're going to be pretty decent, but they're not getting many wins, right now.
They're beating teams that I feel like I should expect them to be. Yeah. Like they beat Clarkton, which like that makes sense, but lose to Twin Rivers. That it's not different animals, but
it's not a bad loss. I mean, but it's a game that I thought, well, maybe they could win, and it's really going to hurt. Speaking of seeding, it's really going to hurt them for their Bloomfield Christmas tournament seeding. I'm sure that these losses, that's going to put them probably 12, 13, 14 down there, I would think. But Bloomfield's a team that you don't want to play in Bloomfield. They play a style that you don't really want to play because they're going to slow you down. They're going to kind of grind out the game. And so that's a team that I think a lot of teams are looking at like, I really don't want to play them because their style is not what you see a lot.
Yeah, they're really chippy in a way that, you don't expect them to do as well as they do. But once, like you said, once they have to play at Bloomfield, like they just hang in a game too. Mm-hmm. Like it's never like really a blowout, I would say.
Yeah, because again, the style that they play, they're not going to get blown out of many games, and they guard really well. You can tell Coach Sindel is a descendant of Coach Josh Dowdy, who was at Dexter for several years. Coach Josh Dowdy got it from Coach Jim Hall, who was at Dexter for forever. He was there whenever I was in high school, and so yeah, I mean, and they're. You can see you can kind of see the similarities in all their styles and the way they play. And you're going to play gritty defense. You're going to be prepared, and you may not have the best talent, but you're going to stay in games. And that's just kind of he's just kind of following with his lineage, coaching lineage, I guess you could say.
And in the same vein, I mean, Hawcom-Clarkton, 51-45. That's another team that's like probably going to be in that lower seed for the BCT. So I don't really know how that compares with Bloomfield's win against Clarkton too.
Yeah, I don't think. Again, Hawcom's a team that I'm not putting high on my list of BCT favorites. But at the same time, you don't know. I mean, you can get a win or two and get hot and maybe go through that consolation bracket, maybe do something there.
Kind of move on. Let's talk about Campbell and Bernie really quick, just because like that was another game that was very competitive. You wouldn't think it from the box score, 58-47, but at the same time, Bernie's been playing pretty hot. It was pretty close for the majority of the game, but Campbell's looking for real.
Oh yeah, I think Campbell's good, and they kind of showed it at the end of last year. They're a good team, and they're obviously they're well coached. Their coach has a state title and is in his repertoire, and I think they're a good team, and they're tough to play at Campbell too, and so that's whenever they play in that tournament, they play well at home. And they're a team that's going to be there at the end. Again, they're in that Class 2 District 1 with Hayti and South Pim and Neelyville. I mean, that's going to be a really, really good district, and I think that they're a team that could cause South Pim some real problems.
So kind of to cap off just these past games, I want to talk about Sykeston and Cape Central and how they both played St. Jen.
Yeah, Sykeston just killed St. Jen. Cape struggled a little bit. I think the difference is Cape is trying to find some guard play right now, and they've got the bigs inside, but you've got to get them the ball. And I think they kind of struggled a little bit against that. Fort Zumwalt West got hot from behind the arc against Cape, and were able to pull away and get that win. And then Fort Zumwalt West couldn't do anything against Sykeston. Sykeston's pressure speeds them up. They aren't able to get those shots off. And I think a lot of people overlook the Sykeston defense. Sykeston plays really, really good defense. And so PJ Farmer, he had another huge night for them. LaCarrion McCray is probably playing as good as anybody right now in the area. And Sykeston is what we thought they were going to be. They're very good offensively and defensively, and they just got Markel Murray eligible, so that's only going to help them. But Cape, I think, is still trying to find those guards to replace what they've lost, and they're going to need to do that in order to get the ball into their bigs.
Do you think the expectation for Cape has been, I don't want to say mixed, but do you just think like from what pieces they've lost and a new coach, do you think they are on track to being a good team, or do you think they're kind of not meeting expectations right now?
I don't know. I think everybody was not sure what the expectations were for this team because they did lose so much, and losing, Reynolds from last year and a couple other players, then you lose Markel Murray. I think people were kind of curious. You have a new coach. I think everybody was just kind of curious as to what they were going to look like, and we're kind of getting a sense of that. But at the same time, it's very early, and again, you're just trying to find out with the new coach. You never really can tell. I think you got to give about 10 games at least before you kind of have a general idea of what this coach is trying to do, and who's buying in, who's not, and what kind of style are they going to play, and so I think you got to give them at least 10 games, probably more than that. But I think the jury's still out on Cape Central, but we'll find out a lot this week coming up in the SEMO Conference tournament, what they're made of. Yeah,
let's move on to the SEMO Conference tournament because I'm so excited just to get to it. It's been sitting on my desk forever, just like seedings are here, brackets here. I'm ready to talk about it. So let's just talk about the first game, Dexter Kennett.
Again, that's a big game for Dexter, I think. I think Dexter, you want to get a win. You want to get a win in this tournament. And if you're the 8th seed, this is a great chance to do that. I think on paper, Dexter's a better team. Dexter has matched up, I don't know how many times in the last few years with Kennett. It seems like they're playing every other week at times because they match up in the SEMO Conference tournament, the Bloomfield Christmas tournament. Seems like they're always playing each other. They're very familiar with each other. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But I like the way Dexter's playing right now. And so I kind of think that they're the favorite to win this game, but it wouldn't shock me if Kennett were to win it.
Yeah, from what we've seen from Kennett, for the most part, they're playing okay. But I think against Dexter right now, especially the wins that Dexter's had, I feel like they're just probably going to roll. I don't know that for certain, but I think it's going to be probably a 16-point differential.
One thing I've learned in that first game, there's going to be very few people there. it's going to be the teams are going to come out and they're not going to come out sharp. Both teams, they're going to come out. It's kind of going to be cold. It's going to be because you're playing a lot earlier than you're used to playing. It's going to be just a different feel. That gym's going to be starting to fill up as the game gets on, but when that game starts, there's going to be 100 people there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those. It's just tough to get going in the first half of that game. So we'll see who starts out better, and I think that's going to have a big impact on how that game goes.
Well, let's talk about the next game then. New Madrid and Jackson.
Yeah, I think Jackson obviously is the clear favorite in that game. They're obviously seeded to win the game. They're just. Seems like they're better right now. And again, it's another tough game for New Madrid. I think New Madrid would kind of not be upset to fall into that loser's bracket, because I think there's winnable games in that loser's bracket where if you win, I mean, it's great that you win, but then now I'm going up against probably a Cape Central. I'm going to have to play a Sykeston or a Notre Dame or a Poplar Bluff, another team I'm probably going to be. So, I mean, I think if you're New Madrid, it's a tough challenge. You want to win if you can, but there's nothing wrong with going into that loser's bracket and finally having some games that you're probably going to be able to match up better with. No,
like we said before, like even if this is a losing year for New Madrid, just having those wins to kind of like the adversity and the wins is probably what's going to make like a good like telling sign for how your seasons are going to go in the future. So I can agree with you there. Like if New Madrid ends up in the consolation bracket and makes some noise there, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but Jackson, they're kind of seasoned already. I mean, honestly, they played in that Borgia tournament, played some really good teams up in that Borgia tournament, played Crothersville the other night. I mean, they're kind of ready. I mean, they seem to be tested, and I personally expect them to be in the championship game with Sykeston. If I had to make a pick, I think those are the two teams that I think kind of stand out right now. So we'll see how New Madrid matches up with them, but I feel like Jackson wins that game.
Well, what about Cape Central and Charleston?
Well, I think Cape Central obviously is a favorite. Their size is going to be a huge problem for Charleston. But I think Charleston hangs with them a little bit. I don't think that this is a game that's just going to be a huge blowout. Again, I could be wrong, but I think that with Charleston's quickness, I think they're going to be able to hang with them. I just don't think that they can handle them inside. I think it's a big problem for them whenever they get Edwards and Goliath in there. I think they're going to really struggle with those guys.
Do you think Charleston's win over Notre Dame has really kind of, I don't want to say amped them up, but do you think it's given them a little more confidence going into this game?
Absolutely. And because they typically don't lose to Dexter very often. And so, you kind of probably had that look of like, oh, what are we really ready for this year? And then to get that win against Notre Dame, I think it's like, okay, well, that was maybe just an anomaly over there against Dexter if you're thinking from the Charleston point of view. So yeah, I think Charleston usually very seldom lacks confidence. I think they're a team that is very comfortable with the way they play. They know that they have a chance to win every game that they play. I think they expect to win every game that they play. So I think that if there was any chink in that confidence, that's taken care of now by that Notre Dame win.
Move on to Notre Dame Poplar Bluff then.
That's going to be a good game. I mean, you would think I think Notre Dame is the better team, but I mean, it wouldn't shock me to see Poplar Bluff win that. Poplar Bluff's played some good teams already. They played Crothersville. They took it on the chin to Ladue, but Ladue's a really good team. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me, but I think that's a game that's kind of a toss-up. It'll be a good game. People are going to, I think, really enjoy that game, but I don't know. If I had to handicap it, I would say Notre Dame, but anything can happen in that one.
So hindsight's 2020, but let's talk about kind of seeding and evaluation. After the past week we've had, do you think these seedings are still accurate, or do you think maybe they should have let them cook a little bit more?
Well, I understand that you kind of have to seed those things a little bit earlier, and teams really haven't really played whenever they seed them. So you're kind of just going off last year more than anything. I think the top 4 or 5, I think they're fine. I think maybe I would have put Dexter at 6, obviously after beating Charleston, and maybe Charleston or maybe Charleston at 6 and Dexter 7, maybe. I don't think I would have put Dexter in that 8-9 game. I think that's the only one I might have changed a little bit, but I don't have too big of an issue with the seedings. I mean, because again, I mean, you're got to go off last year, and I know because you got to get the schedule set, bus schedules and things of that nature. So you've got to schedule these things out a couple weeks in advance. So you really don't have the opportunity to have them play too many games.
So kind of what's your general thoughts about the SEMO Conference? Because looking at all the kind of final scores, Sikeston has been in the SEMO Conference finals more than half of the games.
Yeah.
So do you think it's really a showcase to show like how good is Sikeston this year, or do you think it's really just a good showcase of like skill around the area?
I think it's most of the time a skill around the area. There are times where it's just kind of a Sikeston showcase. I think the SEMO Conference is down a little bit this year compared to years past, so you don't have the. I mean, I think Sikeston is the clear favorite. If you had to ask me, I mean, they're the. That doesn't mean they're going to win the tournament, but they're the clear favorite going in. And again, we've talked about they play so well at the field house that's also another advantage. I mean, a lot of years though you're showcasing talent, and it's like, well, Sikeston may be the top seed or maybe the 2 seed, but there's other teams that you really think that they could really cause them some problems. They could win this. Last year was one. I mean, you had a really, really good New Matter team.
Yeah, that game last year was one of the most entertaining and explosive games I've ever seen. I don't think we're ever going to get a SEMO Conference final that's quite like that.
And I mean, you just look at the teams that you had last year. New Matter was really good. Cape Central, really good. You had Jackson, who I thought was a good team. And so you had some really good teams last year. I just don't think we have the caliber of those teams this year. I think Sikeston is kind of would match up with those teams last year, but maybe not maybe not some of these others. Again, it's different every year, but still it's going to be some of your best basketball teams in Southeast Missouri going to be playing in this tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, teams being down, that's whatever at this point. If you're wanting to watch just like good games, I feel like you always get at least a few out of this tournament.
Yeah, especially after you get out of that first round. I mean, sometimes those first round games are a little, sometimes they get a little lopsided. Sometimes you have some really, really good ones in that first round. But once you get into even the consolation games, once you get into that, into those second and third games, they're usually some really, really good games. And you start to see, you kind of start to see who's going to be the talent of the area, some of the best players in the area, because these are, like I said, these are some of the best teams in Southeast Missouri, and these are some of the best, and best players in Southeast Missouri. So it's a showcase for all of that, and not just Sikeston. And I think Sikeston, like I said, is a clear favorite this year, but there's some other really good players and some good teams this year.
Is there any matchup that you're really looking forward to? And just in that first round, like best game that you're like, okay, I do want to see that.
In the first round, I would think Notre Dame Poplar Bluff, because I don't know much about Poplar Bluff. I know they lost them from last year. And so I kind of want to see how they match up with Notre Dame, and then just kind of see how they would match up against Sikeston, because I've said I think Notre Dame is a team that could cause Sikeston some problems if they get hot from the three. At the same time, Sikeston's just kind of took it to them, year after year lately. It hasn't even been close. So, it's kind of hard to say that. But, I mean, just on paper, I mean, Notre Dame looks like a team that could cause Sikeston some problems. And Poplar Bluff, I can't remember the last time Poplar Bluff beat Sikeston. I mean, I think maybe once in the last 15 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just do not have success against Sikeston. So it'll be interesting to see that game and see how they would match up against the Sikeston in the semifinals.
For me, I'm honestly kind of looking forward to that Cape Charleston game, just because like we said with Cape, like we don't really know what the expectation for that team is. I'm hoping they're better than kind of what everybody thinks on paper. They struggled with St. Genevieve, but they didn't lose. So right. They beat a team that Sikeston's also beat. So they're at least comparable teams. And for Charleston, winning against Notre Dame, that's big. Losing to Dexter, that's big too. So I want to see what they can do against a team that's, kind of considered to be a more higher caliber team. Yeah,
that'll be another good game, I think. And again, I don't think Charleston's a team that's going to get blown out. I think they're a team that's they're just so quick and athletic. They're going to make things happen on the defensive end, and they're going to, if they can hit some shots, then they're going to be right there. If they can't hit shots, then they're going to get beat. But if you told me tomorrow that Charleston beat Cape Central, I'm going to be like, well, good for them. I mean, it wouldn't be a shocking thing. I mean, it would, but at the same time, I fully expect Cape to win that game.
So final thoughts on Dexter Kennett too. Do you think that's really going to decide seeding for BCT?
I think if Dexter wins that game, I think they're the 4 seed. I mean,
And what if Kennett wins? Where do you think that puts them?
Then I don't know. Then I think it's kind of puts everything back into a free for all, because then you got Kennett, mixing in there. You've got Bernie, which will I would think would get a 5 seed maybe. Haytie's in there as well. Because those are all teams that kind of match up right there with Kennett. So I think that kind of puts it all kind of in a free for all at that point. But I think if Dexter wins, it's hard not to give them the 4 seed, moving forward.
Yeah, it sounds like a stark contrast. And this is just what's coming out of my head. So don't take any credence. Like, I don't get to decide seedings at all. But if Dexter wins, 4 seed. If Dexter loses, I'm going to say Kennett 7, Dexter 8.
And could very well be. And again, we have no input on these seedings, so we're just completely guessing. But there's a lot of that going on social media, so we might as well go ahead and give our 2 cents worth. But yeah, you could be right. You could be right. There's no telling. Dexter could still get the 4 seed, win over Charleston. That's a big thing. I would think that they would be under Kennett though if they lose to Kennett. I would think Kennett would get seeded higher. It'd be
obviously
hard not to seed them, better.
No, I'm very excited for next week, especially just going through all these bigger matchups, and we'll probably be there to cover them coming Thursday morning. And who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. We could be talking about who knows? We could be talking about a Dexter Popper Bluff semifinal. Yeah. How shocking would that be? I don't think that's going to happen. I would not put any money on that. But at the same time, we could get some surprises in this first round, and even if not, I think we have some intriguing semifinals.
I'm rooting for unpredictability, and I just can't wait to see what happens. But for us, thank you for listening to the SEMO Sports Zone, and we'll catch you next time.